The fortress moon hung like a rusted teardrop against the void, silent except for the distant thunder of orbital bombardment and the whispered prayers of my battle brothers. As captain of the 8th Company, I led 200 sons of dawn to reclaim what was lost. But among the iron warriors waited Corvus, a name I had not heard in millennia, a brother who once stood beside me during the Great Crusade. Through my helm's red lenses, I saw him upon the battlements, his armor a corrupted mockery of what we both once wore. As bolter shells screamed through the thin atmosphere and ceramite cracked, a terrible question formed in my mind. If his conviction mirrors my own zeal, what truly separates loyalty from damnation? I once believed the Emperor's light could illuminate even the darkest corners of a man's soul. Now I know better. There are places within us where light cannot reach, hollow spaces carved by centuries of war, spaces where only echoes live. I know because I have stared into those spaces. I have seen my own reflection staring back. The fortress moon of Vardoon hangs like a rusted teardrop against the void, its surface scarred with the wounds of ancient bombardment and more recent heresy. From the viewport of our strike cruiser, I watch as assault craft prepare for deployment, their engines burning hot against the cold emptiness. My brothers of the 8th Company stand in perfect formation, their yellow armor pristine despite the countless battles scored upon the ceramite. They are the sons of dawn, imperial fists, defenders of terror and bearers of the Emperor's wrath. I am Captain Helios, their commander, their brother, their executioner when duty demands. We have come to Vardoon to reclaim what was lost. Intelligence reports speak of iron warriors, traitors to the Imperium, corrupted sons who turned from the Emperor's light 10,000 years ago. The same reports tell us they are led by one who calls himself Corvus, a name I have not heard in millennia, a name I had hoped was forgotten to time and treachery. My fist clenches involuntarily around the hilt of my power sword. Captain, Chaplain Thaddeus approaches, his skull helm betraying nothing of the man beneath. The men await your words. I nod, turning from the void to face my brothers. 200 space marines stand before me, giants among men, each one a walking fortress of gene-forged muscle and unshakable faith. They know only that we fight to reclaim Vardoon from traitor forces. They do not know what waits for me upon those shattered walls. Sons of dawn, my voice carries across the chamber without effort. The fortress moon of Vardoon stands defiled by the enemies of mankind. 10 millennia ago, our brothers turned from the Emperor's light and embraced damnation. Today, we bring retribution. I can feel their zeal through the shared bond of our chapter, a righteous fury that burns hotter than the engines of our drop pods. But beneath my armor, an older emotion stirs, one I have not felt since the days of the Great Crusade: doubt. The Iron Warriors believe they understand siege warfare. They believe the walls they build and the walls they break define them as warriors. I pause, scanning the impassive faces of my battle brothers. They are wrong. What defines us is not the fortresses we defend, but the faith we carry. The Emperor protects. The Emperor protects. 200 voices respond in perfect unison. As we board the drop pods, I find my thoughts drifting back across the vast gulf of time to battles fought alongside the very warriors we now hunt. I remember Corvus as he was, a brother in arms, steadfast and loyal. What corruption could turn such a warrior from his oaths? And if such a man could fall, what shelter could any of us claim against the same darkness? The drop pod shudders around me as final preparations are made. Brother Tavian, my command squad's ancient, stands with our company standard gripped firmly in one massive gauntlet, its golden fabric moving slightly in the recycled air of the launch bay. "You seem troubled, Captain," he says, his voice low enough that only I can hear. "Memories, ancient, nothing more." I seal my helm, the familiar hiss of pressurization cutting off further conversation. Through the red lenses of my helm, the world takes on a crimson cast, as though already bathed in the blood we will soon spill. The countdown begins, each number bringing us closer to war, to vengeance, to a confrontation I have both dreaded and longed for across centuries of service. 3. The liturgies of battle play across my helm's display, prayers to focus the mind and steel the soul. 2. I check my bolt pistol one final time, though I know it is perfect, as all things crafted by the sons of dawn must be. 1. My hearts beat in unison, the enhanced physiology of a space marine preparing for combat. The drop pod launches, and we are falling through void, through atmosphere, through memory. I close my eyes, though it changes nothing behind my helm. In the darkness of my mind, I see Corvus as he once was, standing alongside me on the battlements of a forgotten world, both of us young by the measure of our current lives, both of us certain of our purpose. "Brother," he had said then, "do you ever wonder what becomes of us when the galaxy is finally compliant, when there are no more wars to fight?" "There will always be enemies of mankind," I had replied, "and we will always stand against them." How bitter those words taste now, how prophetic in ways I could never have imagined. The drop pod shudders violently as it enters Vardun's thin atmosphere, the heat of entry nothing compared to the fire of righteous hatred burning in the hearts of my brothers. Targeting cogitators scream as defensive fire reaches up to greet us. The Iron Warriors have had decades to prepare for this moment, to transform Vardun into a monument to their twisted faith. I feel no fear as the pod rocks under the impact of defensive fire, only a cold certainty that I will face Corvus before this battle ends. Brace for impact. I vox to my command squad as the surface of Vardun rushes up to meet us. The drop pod strikes with enough force to shatter stone, its shock absorbers straining against the violence of our arrival. For one heartbeat, there is only the groaning of metal and the distant thunder of battle. Then the pod's assault ramp blows outward, and we are moving, bolters firing at targets already identified by our helm's auto-senses. Traitor guardsmen die in droves, their mortal frames no match for bolter shells that detonate within flesh. They are not our true target, merely obstacles to be cleared, chaff before the scythe. Across the cratered landscape of Vardun, I see other drop pods disgorging their lethal cargo, yellow armor gleaming dully in the weak light of a distant Sunday. Vardun's primary fortress rises before us, a massive structure of dark stone and corrupted metal, its walls adorned with the 8-pointed star of chaos undivided. Advance pattern Epsilon. I command through the Vox. Devastator squads, target the eastern wall section. Assault squads, prepare for breach once the wall is down. War is numbers and angles, force applied precisely where resistance is weakest. My father Rogel Dawn taught us this, a lesson written in our very genes. The Iron Warriors know this truth as well as we do, their own Primarch having been a master of siege warfare before his fall. As we advance across the killing field before the fortress, enemy fire intensifies. Shells scream overhead, precision bombardment that speaks to the skill of our corrupted brothers. They have had 10 millennia to perfect their craft, 10,000 years of hatred to fuel their defiance. A shell detonates close enough to shower my armor with debris. Through the smoke and dust, I catch my first glimpse of power armor upon the walls, the dull metal of the Iron Warriors visible even at this distance. My auto-senses zoom, searching for one figure in particular among the defenders. "Captain," Apothecary Memnon voxes, his voice cutting through the din of battle. Eastern wall section is heavily reinforced. Devastators report minimal effect from initial bombardment. I process this information instantly, tactical options unfolding in my mind like the petals of some lethal flower. Redirect assault elements to the northern approach, signal the Thunderhawks for close air support along the eastern wall. As my orders are relayed, I lead my command squad toward the northern gate, a massive portal of adamantium and ceramite that has stood sealed since the Iron Warriors claimed this world. Above it, defensive emplacements track our movement, heavy bolters and autocannons spitting death with mechanical precision. "Take cover," I command as we reach the relative shelter of a blasted HAB unit. Through the broken walls, we have a clear view of the northern approach to the fortress. My enhanced hearing picks up the distinctive roar of Thunderhawk engines as our air support arrives, missiles streaking toward the eastern wall sections. "What do you see, Captain?" Brother Tavian asks, the company standard still gripped firmly in his hand despite the intensity of the incoming fire. I do not answer immediately, my attention caught by movement along the battlements above the northern gate. A figure stands there, larger than the iron warriors around him, his armor adorned with trophies of war and symbols of chaos. Even at this distance, I recognize the stance, the set of those massive shoulders. "Corvus," I whisper, the name both prayer and curse upon my lips. As if hearing me across the tumult of battle, the figure turns, facing directly toward our position. I feel a cold certainty that despite the distance, despite the smoke and confusion of combat, he sees me as clearly as I see him. "Captain?" Tavian's voice seems to come from very far away. "Prepare the melter charges," I command, my voice steady despite the storm raging within. We breach the northern gate. Vardun's thin atmosphere carries sound poorly, yet I would swear I hear laughter from those distant battlements, a sound that echoes across millennia of hatred and betrayal. My grip tightens on my power sword as Brother Karan moves forward with the melter charges, his movements precise despite the hail of fire from the walls. The gate before us represents more than mere access to the fortress. It is a threshold between past and present, between brotherhood and betrayal. As Karan sets the charges, I find my thoughts once more drifting to days long past, to a time when Corvus and I stood side by side, our legions united in purpose. Fire in the hole, Karan voxes, snapping me back to the present as we take cover behind the ruined Hab unit. The melter charges detonate with a sound like the death of stars, a blinding flash that overwhelms even my auto-senses for a brief moment. When my vision clears, the northern gate stands broken, its adamantium skin peeled back like the petals of some metallic flower. Beyond it lies darkness, a throat leading into the beast. For the Emperor and the Primarch, I vox to all units. The way is open. 8th Company, advance. As one, we move toward the broken gate, bolters ready, hearts steady. The first of many battles for Vardun has begun, and with it, my long-delayed reckoning with the past. Shells scream overhead as we breach the northern gate, their trajectories calculated to devastating effect. 3 brothers fall in the first volley, their armor punctured by shells that could only have been fired by Astartes' weaponry. I signal for the company to spread out to minimize casualties from the precision bombardment. "Captain," Sergeant Octavian voxes, enemy armor deploying from the eastern courtyard. Predator tanks, at least 3. Anti-armor teams, eastern approach, I command, without hesitation. Command squad, with me to the central keep. The interior of Vardun's fortress is a maze of corridors and kill zones, each one designed to funnel attackers into carefully prepared killing grounds. Under normal circumstances, I would proceed with caution, securing each section before advancing. But I can feel Corvus waiting, his presence a gravity well pulling me forward. We encounter the first of the Iron Warriors in a vaulted chamber that might once have been a chapel. Now, profane symbols cover the walls, and the air tastes of copper and ozone even through my helm's filters. They emerge from side passages, their armor the color of dried blood and tarnished metal, bolters roaring. "Purge the traitors." I vox, my bolt pistol already firing, each shot finding its mark in corrupted ceramite. My command squad forms a firing line, disciplined volleys cutting down the first wave of attackers. But these are not mortal men. They are space marines, twisted by chaos but no less lethal for their corruption. They weather our initial volley and return fire, bolt shells detonating against pillars and floor tiles, filling the air with stone shrapnel. I activate my power sword, its energy field humming to life with a sound like angry wasps. "Close quarters," I command, charging forward to meet our corrupted brothers in combat. The first Iron Warrior falls as my sword cleaves through his chest plate, the power field disrupting the molecular bonds of ceramite and flesh alike. His blood hisses against the energized blade, evaporating instantly. A second traitor swings a chainsword at my head, the whirring teeth seeking purchase on my helm. I duck beneath the blow and drive my sword up through the soft joint at his throat, the blade emerging from the top of his skull. Around me, my command squad engages with similar efficiency, each warrior a master of close combat forged through centuries of warfare. Brother Karan falls, his chest caved in by a thunder hammer wielded by a particularly massive iron warrior. Chaplain Thaddeus avenges him, his Crozius Arcanum crackling with energy as it connects with the traitor's helm, crushing it and the skull beneath. When the last of the iron warriors falls, we stand amid the corpses of our corrupted kin, yellow armor now stained with the evidence of battle. I perform a quick assessment. 2 brothers dead, another wounded but functional. Acceptable losses given the resistance. Captain, Apothecary Memnon approaches, already having harvested the gene seed from our fallen. The wound in Brother Tavian's side will slow him. I look to our ancient, who stands unbowed despite the rent in his armor where a bolt shell penetrated. I will keep pace, Captain, he assures me, the company standard still held high. I nod once, decision made. We continue to the central keep. Signal all units, secure your sectors, and converge on the primary objective. As we move deeper into the fortress, signs of corruption become more evident. The walls themselves seem to pulse with malign energy, and occasionally I catch glimpses of movement at the corner of my vision, things that should not exist in real space. The Iron Warriors were never the most devoted to the ruinous powers, their fall to chaos more a matter of pride and bitterness than religious fervor. Yet the taint is unmistakable here, a wrongness that sets my teeth on edge even through the protective systems of my power armor. Captain, Brother Tavian speaks through a private Vox channel, you know their leader. It is not a question. The Ancient has served alongside me for 3 centuries. He knows me too well to be deceived by stoic silence. I knew him, I correct, my voice betraying nothing of the turmoil within. In the days of the Great Crusade, before the heresy, he was Iron Warriors, I was Imperial Fists, but we fought together on a dozen worlds. Then this is personal, Tavian observes. I consider my response carefully. Personal vendettas have no place in the calculus of war, yet I cannot deny the truth of his words. The Iron Warriors turned from the Emperor's light. I say finally. They betrayed everything we fought for, everything we believed. This is not personal, Ancient. This is justice. Even as the words leave my mouth, I recognize them for the lie they are. But Tavian is wise enough not to press further, and we continue in silence toward the heart of the fortress. The central keep rises above the surrounding structures, its architecture a perversion of imperial design. What should be soaring arches and devotional buttresses have been twisted into shapes that hurt the eye, geometry that speaks of other dimensions bleeding into our own. At its peak, a signal beacon pulses with unholy light, broadcasting some profane message to the void. All units report. I vox as we approach the keep's main entrance, a massive door adorned with the skulls of fallen warriors, some still wearing the remnants of Imperial Fists' helms. One by one, the sergeants of 8th Company check in. The eastern and western approaches are secured, though at significant cost. Nearly 40 brothers have fallen, their gene seed harvested by our apothecaries for return to the chapter. The southern gate remains contested, Iron Warriors and corrupted servitors fighting with desperate intensity to maintain their hold. Sergeant Lucius, reinforce the southern approach, I command. All other units converge on the central keep. We end this now. As if in answer to my words, the massive doors before us begin to open, moving silently despite their enormous weight. Beyond them lies darkness deeper than the void between stars. Be ready, I warn, bolt pistol raised, power sword humming. The enemy comes. From the darkness emerge figures in Terminator armor, ancient cataphractii pattern suits that date back to the Great Crusade itself. Their armor bears marks of 10,000 years of warfare, yet moves with lethal purpose as the elite veterans of the Iron Warriors advance toward us. Open fire, I command, and bolter shells streak toward the Terminators. Most detonate harmlessly against their thick armor, though here and there a lucky shot finds a weak point in ancient ceramite. The Terminators return fire, storm bolters spitting death with mechanical precision. 2 more of my command squad fall, their armor no match for the heavier weapons. Yet we hold our ground, Astartes' discipline overcoming even the dread inspired by the advancing cataphractii. Fall back to defensible positions. I vox, recognizing that we cannot match the Terminators in a frontal assault. Draw them out into the open. As my command squad executes a fighting retreat, I catch sight of a figure emerging from the darkness behind the Terminators. Larger even than the massive cataphractii warriors, his armor a corrupted version of Terminator plate adorned with trophies of war and symbols of devotion to dark gods. Corvus. Even through the distortion of his corrupted armor, I recognize the way he moves, the set of his shoulders, the tilt of his helm. 10,000 years have passed since we fought side by side, yet in this moment it could have been yesterday. Helios. His voice carries across the battlefield, amplified by voxcasters built into his armor. Still hiding behind your brothers, I see. Some things never change. I feel anger rise within me, hot and immediate. This is what he wants, to provoke me, to make this personal. I will not give him the satisfaction. Iron Warrior. I respond, my own vox projecting my voice with mechanical clarity. You have defiled this sacred ground with your presence. In the Emperor's name, you will be purged. Laughter, bitter and hollow, echoes from his helm. The Emperor? Still clinging to that corpse you call a god? I expected better from you, brother. I am not your brother. I spit, the words tasting, of ash and regret. You lost the right to that title when you turned from the light. Around us, battle continues to rage. Imperial fists and iron warriors locked in the lethal dance they have performed since the days of the heresy. But for this moment, it seems there are only 2 warriors on Vardun, Corvus and myself, loyalist and traitor, reflections separated by 10 millennia of divergent faith. You speak of light. Corvus takes a step forward, his corrupted Terminator armor moving with surprising grace. Yet you serve blindly, without question. At least I chose my damnation, Helios. Can you say the same? Before I can respond, he raises a massive power maul, lightning crackling along its length. Enough talk. Let us settle this as warriors, as we once swore we would. The challenge hangs in the air between us, a bridge across the gulf of betrayal and time. I know I should refuse, should focus on the tactical objective rather than personal combat. That would be the proper course, the one dictated by the Codex Astartes and the teachings of my Primarch. Instead, I step forward, power sword raised in salute. So be it, traitor. Let us end what began 10,000 years ago. Behind his corrupted helm, I imagine Corvus smiles. The space between us becomes a killing ground as Corvus and I circle each other, weapons at the ready. My command squad and his Terminators have formed a rough circle around us, continuing their own battle, but conscious of the symbolic weight of this confrontation. Captain versus warlord, loyalist versus traitor, faith versus fallen. I mourned you, brother, I say, the words escaping before I can stop them. When news of the Iron Warrior's betrayal reached us, I refused to believe you had turned. Sentiment. Corvus spits, his power maul crackling with barely contained energy. Another weakness the false emperor cultivated in his slaves. He strikes without further warning, the maul sweeping in a horizontal arc that would shatter my ribcage if it connected. I step inside the blow, my power sword slicing toward the joint at his shoulder, seeking the weak point in his Terminator plate. Corvus is faster than his massive armor suggests, pivoting to block my strike with the haft of his maul. The impact travels up my arm, ceramite gauntlet absorbing most of the shock but leaving my hand momentarily numb. First blood to neither, he laughs, a hollow sound through his helm's vox, just like our practiced duels of old. The reference to our shared past ignites something in me, a fury that transcends the cold calculation of combat. I launch into a series of strikes, each one precisely aimed at the vulnerable points of his armor. Corvus parries or dodges each attack, his own countermeasures forcing me to give ground. We are evenly matched, products of the same era of warfare, shaped by the same tactical doctrines before the heresy tore the legions apart. For every technique I employ, he has a counter. For every weakness in his defense, I lack the opening to exploit it. You fight well for a relic. Corvus taunts as we separate momentarily, both assessing the other for signs of weakness. How many centuries have you carried that blade, Helios? How many traitors have you cut down while telling yourself you serve a righteous cause? More than I can count, I respond, circling left to force him to pivot his massive bulk. And I will add one more to that tally before this day ends. He laughs again, the sound distorted by his helm's vox emitters. Still so certain of your righteousness? That was always your flaw, brother. You never questioned, never doubted, the perfect son. His words strike closer to the truth than I care to admit. Doubt has been my shadow companion these long centuries, though I have never voiced it to another soul. What separates my faith from his madness? Are we not both killers shaped by powers beyond our comprehension? The moment of introspection nearly costs me my life as Corvus lunges forward, his maul aimed not at my body but at my helm. I duck beneath the blow, feeling the crackle of energy as it passes just above my head. My counterstrike catches him in the side, power sword biting through a section of corrupted ceramite to the flesh beneath. First blood to the loyalist. Corvus grunts in pain but does not falter, spinning to bring his maul down in an overhead strike that I barely deflect with my blade. The impact drives me to one knee, power sword's energy field screaming as it struggles against the maul's opposing force. You bleed me, I break you, Corvus snarls, pressing his advantage, using his Terminator armor's superior weight to bear down on my guard. A fair exchange, would you not agree? Through gritted teeth, I respond, nothing about you is fair, traitor. You threw away everything we stood for, everything we believed in. I saw the truth. He hisses, his helm now inches from mine as he continues to press down. The Emperor was never a god, Helios. Just a man with godlike ambitions who sacrificed his sons on the altar of his own ego. Anger gives me strength, and I surge upward, breaking his guard and slashing at his chest plate. The blow leaves a glowing furrow in the ceramite but fails to penetrate to the flesh beneath. Corvus counters with a backhanded sweep of his maul that catches me in the shoulder, the impact sending me staggering back several paces. Warning runes flash across my helm's display, armor integrity compromised at the left pauldron, minor damage to the underlying muscle tissue. Nothing a space marine cannot fight through, but a reminder that Corvus is more than capable of ending me if I make a serious mistake. Around us, the battle for the central keep continues to rage. Through my vox, I hear reports of Imperial fists breaching the upper levels, of desperate fighting in the corridors and chambers of the fortress. But here, in this improvised arena, there is only the duel, only the reflection of what might have been and what has become. Do you remember Tarsis Ultra? Corvus asks suddenly, circling me with the patience of a predator who knows its prey cannot escape. The campaign against the Orc Empire? I remember, I acknowledge, using the moment to assess the damage to my armor, to plan my next series of attacks. We fought side by side for 3 months. Your Iron Warriors held the eastern approaches while my Imperial fists secured the hive spires. And after, Corvus continues, we shared wine stolen from a planetary governor's private reserves. You spoke of your hopes for the Great Crusade, for the Imperium we were building. Such innocent faith. The memory rises unbidden, Corvus without his helm, his face unmarked by corruption, eyes clear and focused as we discussed the future of the Imperium we both served. How could that warrior have fallen so far? How could that brotherhood have turned to such bitter enmity? The past is dead, I say, pushing the memory aside, just as you should be. I launch myself forward, feinting high before dropping into a sweeping strike at his legs. Corvus anticipates the move, stepping back and bringing his maul down toward my extended arm. I roll aside, the maul cratering the floor where I had been an instant before. Back on my feet, I press the attack, each strike flowing into the next, my power sword a blur of energy seeking any weakness in his defense. Corvus gives ground, his movements becoming more defensive as he weathers the assault. For a moment, I believe I have him. My blade slips past his guard, aimed for the joint at his neck. Victory seems certain. Then pain explodes along my right side as a bolt shell detonates against my armor. One of the Terminators, breaking the implicit rules of our duel. The distraction is momentary, but enough for Corvus to counter, his maul connecting solidly with my chest plate. I feel ceramite crack beneath the impact, feel ribs break as I am thrown backward by the force of the cold blow. My back impacts against a pillar, and I slide to the ground, momentarily stunned by the damage. Warning runes cascade across my helm's display, multiple fractures, internal bleeding, armor integrity compromised in 17 locations. The auto-medicae systems of my power armor inject stimulants and pain suppressors, but even these cannot fully compensate for such damage. Corvus approaches slowly, confidently, his maul held loose at his side. And so it ends, brother. Not with the clash of ideals, but with the simple truth of violence. The strongest survive, the weakest perish, the only law the galaxy truly respects. I try to rise, using my sword as a brace, but my body refuses to respond with its usual efficiency. Through the pain and the combat stims, I manage to look up at him, at the corrupted parody of the brother I once knew. If you truly believe that, I force the words out, you would have killed me already. Something holds you back, Corvus. Some remnant of the oath we both took. He tilts his helm, considering, perhaps. Or perhaps I simply want you to understand before you die, to acknowledge that your faith was misplaced, that your millennia of service have been in devotion to a lie. Even if that were true, I say, finally managing to get one foot beneath me, it would change nothing. Better to die in service to a noble lie than to live in thrall to your corrupt truth. Anger flashes through his posture, his maul rising for a killing blow. Then die with your ignorance intact, Imperial fist. The maul descends, its power field leaving a trail of distorted air in its wake. With the last of my strength, I pivot from my half-kneeling position, my power sword rising to meet the blow. The two weapons connect with a sound like a thunderclap, power fields interacting in ways the Mechanicus has never fully explained. For an instant, we are frozen in tableau, the traitor poised to kill, the loyalist offering one final defiance. Then the power swords, energy field overloads, the crystalline matrix of the blade, unable to withstand the opposing force. It shatters, fragments of metal spraying outward as the maul continues its downward arc. But the fractional delay is enough. I roll aside, the maul impacting the floor where I had been, the flagstones cracking under the force of the blow. Pain lances through my body at the movement, broken ribs grinding against each other despite the armor's stabilizing influence. Now truly disarmed, I face Corvus with only my bolt pistol remaining. Against his Terminator plate, it will be virtually useless unless I can find a vulnerable point at close range. A valiant effort, Corvus acknowledges, retrieving his maul from the shattered floor. But ultimately futile, like all the sacrifices your false emperor demanded. He advances once more, measured steps that echo with finality. Around us, I become aware that the sounds of battle have changed. The Vox channels fill with reports of Imperial fists, pushing the Iron Warriors back on all fronts, of victory within reach. If I can delay Corvus just a little longer, my brothers may yet arrive to turn the tide of our personal combat. Your forces are being overrun, I tell him, continuing to give ground, searching for any advantage in the environment. Surrender now, face the Emperor's justice rather than death at the hands of his sons. Corvus laughs, the sound like metal grinding against metal. Justice, from the Imperium that has become everything we once fought against? Your emperor wanted to free humanity from superstition and tyranny. Look at what his Imperium has become, a religion of fear, a bureaucracy of oppression. His words echo thoughts I have had in the darkest moments of doubt, questions I have never dared voice aloud. Has the Imperium truly honored the Emperor's vision, or have we become something else in his long absence? The Emperor protects. I respond automatically. The Catechism, a shield against doubt as much as against my enemy's words. The Emperor is dead, Corvus counters, his body a rotting husk, his dream corrupted by those who claim to serve him. At least the gods I serve are honest about their nature. He lunges forward, faster than his bulk would suggest, the maul sweeping in a horizontal arc meant to take me at the waist. I throw myself backward, landing hard on my injured side, pain flaring despite the combat stims flooding my system. My bolt pistol comes up, firing 3 rounds in quick succession at his helm. The first 2 detonate against the ceramite, leaving scorch marks but no serious damage. The third finds a weak point, a section damaged in our earlier combat, and explodes. Corvus roars in pain and rage, his free hand coming up to his damaged helm. I see that one of his eye lenses has been shattered, revealing the corruption beneath. Not the clean augmetics of a loyal space marine, but something warped by chaos. A glimpse of mutation that speaks to the price he has paid for his allegiance. First blood to both, I say, echoing his earlier taunt as I struggle to regain my feet. His response is a wordless bellow of rage as he charges forward, all pretense of measured combat abandoned in favor of raw aggression. The maul comes down in a series of devastating blows, each one barely avoided as I give ground before his fury. My bolt pistol clicks empty after 2 more shots, neither finding a vulnerable target. I discard it, now completely unarmed against his wrath. Yet I am not defenseless. 10 millennia of warfare have taught me that a warrior's greatest weapon is not his blade or bolter, but his mind. Corvus's rage makes him predictable, his attacks powerful but lacking the precision of our earlier exchanges. I wait for the pattern to establish, for the rhythm of his assault to reveal itself. When it does, I make my move. As his maul descends in another overhead strike, I step inside his guard, my gauntleted hand catching his wrist. For an instant, we are locked together, his superior strength gradually overcoming my desperate grip. But I did not mean to stop the blow, merely to guide it. The maul crashes down beside me, its energy field disrupting the molecular bonds of the floor. In the same motion, I drive the reinforced knuckles of my free hand into the damaged section of his helm, targeting the exposed eye and the vulnerable flesh beneath. Corvus screams, a sound of pain and fury that echoes through the vaulted chamber. He staggers back, helm askew, revealing glimpses of the face beneath. What I see chills me more than any threat. Not the brother I once knew, but something that wears his features like an ill-fitting mask, the flesh warped by exposure to the warp, one eye a swollen orb of mutated tissue. Is this the reward for your faith? I ask, pressing my momentary advantage with words if not weapons. This corruption, this slow death of everything that made you Astartes. You understand nothing. Corvus snarls, his voice distorted by pain and the damage to his helm. This is ascension, not corruption. The gods reward faith with power, with transformation. What has your emperor given you except endless war and duty without purpose? He tears off the ruined helm, casting it aside with contempt. The face beneath is a nightmare reflection of the battle brother I once knew. His skin is stretched tight over altered bone structure, veins pulsing with unnatural energy visible beneath the surface. One eye remains human, burning with hatred and recognition. The other has become something else, a writhing orb of tissue that seems to perceive dimensions beyond mortal comprehension. Look upon me, Helios, he commands, spreading his arms wide. I have become more than we ever were as the Emperor's tools. The Iron Warriors embrace strength through adversity, through pain, through transformation. What do the Imperial fists embrace except stagnation? I find myself unable to look away from the ruin of his features, from the brother lost beneath layers of corruption. We embrace duty, I answer, my voice steady despite the pain of my injuries. We embrace the walls that protect humanity. We stand against the darkness you have welcomed into your soul. Corvus laughs, the sound wet and wrong from a throat no longer fully human. Darkness? You call it darkness because you fear what you do not understand. The warp is not evil, brother, it simply is. Like a storm or a fire, it destroys and it transforms. The gods are not malicious, merely hungry. And you feed them, I say, circling slowly, looking for anything that might serve as a weapon. With betrayal, with suffering, with death. As you feed your corpse, God, he counters, retrieving his maul. With blind obedience, with endless sacrifice, with the slow death of your humanity. Tell me, Helios, when was the last time you felt joy? True joy, not the cold satisfaction of duty fulfilled. The question strikes deeper than any blade, piercing to the core of doubts I have buried beneath centuries of service. When did I last feel anything beyond the mission, beyond the next battle, the next war? Has devotion to the Emperor hollowed me out just as surely as chaos has corrupted Corvus? Joy is not the purpose of our existence, I reply, the catechism familiar on my tongue. We were made for war, brother, to defend humanity against the darkness of the void and the enemy within. Made for war, Corvus repeats, advancing once more, his movements more measured now that the initial rage has passed. Created as weapons by a being who claimed to love humanity, yet built his empire on the bones of millions. At least my gods are honest about their hunger. I have no answer for him, no counter to the bitter truth that underlies his words. We were made for slaughter, gene-forged and conditioned to kill without hesitation or remorse. Does the righteousness of our cause truly separate us from those who fell, or merely the luck of which Primarch's gene seed flows in our veins? The moment of philosophical uncertainty costs me. Corvus strikes, his maul sweeping in from the side with speed that belies his Terminator plate. I attempt to dodge, but my injured body responds too slowly. The impact catches me in the side, ceramite cracking further as I am hurled across the chamber to crash against the far wall. Darkness threatens to engulf me, my enhanced physiology struggling against damage that would have killed a mortal man instantly. The auto-medicae systems of my armor flood my system with stimulants, forcing consciousness to remain despite my body's protests. I taste blood, rich with the genetic legacy of Rogel Dawn. Through the red haze of pain, I see Corvus approaching, his corrupted features twisted in what might be regret or merely satisfaction at a hunt nearing its conclusion. This is not the end I would have chosen for us, he says, standing over me, maul ready for the killing stroke. In another life, we might have stood together still, brother to brother, facing the galaxy's threats side by side. There is only one life, I manage, each word a struggle against the weight in my chest, the feeling of fluid where there should be none. One path, one duty, and you have followed it to your death. Corvus raises the maul. The tragedy of the Imperial fists, too stubborn to know when you are defeated. As the maul begins its downward arc, a flash of yellow appears at the periphery of my vision. Brother Tavian, wounded but unbowed, charges into Corvus with the full weight of his power armor, the company standard held before him like a lance. The impact staggers even Corvus in his Terminator plate, forcing him back several steps from my prone form. Captain, Tavian voxes, positioning himself between me and the corrupted warlord. Reinforcements are incoming. Hold fast. Hope flares within me, not for my own survival, but for the mission. If Corvus falls, the Iron Warriors will lose their leader, their symbolic link to the days of the heresy. Vardun can be cleansed, returned to the Emperor's light. Corvus recovers quickly, his maul sweeping toward Tavian with lethal intent. The ancient parries with the adamantium haft of the standard, the impact sending vibrations through the metal that I can see in the trembling of the fabric above. Another lamb to the slaughter. Corvus snarls, pressing his attack against the already wounded ancient. Your captain cannot save himself. What hope have you? The hope of the righteous. Tavian responds, his voice calm despite the ferocity of the assault he faces. The Emperor protects. The words, so often spoken by rote, seem to take on new meaning in this moment. Not a statement of fact, but an expression of faith, of the choice to believe despite evidence to the contrary. The Emperor protects through his sons, through their sacrifice and devotion, through the unbroken chain of duty that stretches across millennia. Using the wall for support, I force myself to stand, each movement sending fresh waves of pain through my damaged body. Without a weapon, I cannot hope to defeat Corvus, but perhaps I do not need to. The central keep shudders around us, dust falling from the vaulted ceiling as explosions rock the structure. Through my vox, I hear reports of Imperial fists breaching the upper levels, of desperate fighting as the Iron Warriors are pushed back on all fronts. Your fortress falls, traitor. I call to Corvus, drawing his attention back to me. Your brothers die. Was it worth it, this petty kingdom of corruption, this monument to betrayal? Rage flashes across his mutated features, his human eye narrowing in hatred. You think this is about a fortress? About a single world? This is about the long war, Helios. A war your Imperium cannot win because it refuses to understand what it fights. He turns away from Tavian, his focus once more on me, on the reflection of what he once was. The Iron Warriors endure, we rebuild, we return. Cut us down here, and we rise elsewhere, stronger for the testing. Then we will cut you down again, I promise, moving away from the wall, forcing my body to obey despite its protests, as many times as needed, until the last traitor falls and the Emperor's justice is complete. Corvus laughs, the sound echoing strangely in the vaulted chamber. Justice? There is no justice in this galaxy, brother. Only power and those too weak to seek it. He raises his maul, preparing to charge. Let me show you the truth of power. As he surges forward, the ceiling above us explodes inward, chunks of masonry and metal raining down as a breaching charge detonates. Through the newly created hole rappel members of Tactical Squad Invictus, bolters already firing as they descend. Bolt shells impact against Corvus's Terminator plate, most detonating harmlessly against the ancient ceramite, but forcing him to raise an arm to protect his exposed face. In that moment of distraction, Tavian strikes, driving the pointed base of the standard into a joint in the Terminator armor, between arm and torso, where millennia of battle have worn away the protective seals. Corvus roars in pain, backhanding Tavian with enough force to send the ancient crashing into a nearby pillar. The standard falls from nerveless fingers as Tavian slumps to the ground, his helm cracked open to reveal the face beneath, eyes already glazing with approaching death. For the Emperor, Tavian whispers, his voice carrying to me through the damaged vox, his gaze fixed on something beyond the physical realm. Grief and rage war within me, but I force both aside, focusing on the tactical situation with the discipline forged across 10,000 years of warfare. Squad Invictus has formed a firing line, bolters continuing to target Corvus even as the Iron Warrior moves with lethal purpose toward their position. 2 Marines fall to his maul before they can evade, ceramite and flesh pulped by the power field's disruption. A third is backhanded with enough force to shatter his ribcage even through his armor. But still they fire, still they stand their ground, buying time with their lives. Time for me. I retrieve the fallen standard, its weight familiar in my hands, though I have not carried it since my days as a sergeant, centuries ago. The golden aquila at its peak gleams despite the dust and debris filling the air, a symbol of the Imperium's endurance, of faith maintained across millennia of darkness. Corvus turns at the sound of my approach, his corrupted face twisting in a smile that holds no humor, only the anticipation of violence. Still standing, brother. Your tenacity would be admirable if it were not so futile. Not futile, I respond, leveling the standard like a spear. Necessary. I charge, using the last of my strength, the last reserves of energy my damaged body can summon. The pointed base of the standard, designed to be planted in the ground during ceremonies, now becomes a weapon aimed at the vulnerable spot Tavian revealed. Corvus raises his maul to strike, but the standard's reach exceeds that of his weapon. The adamantium tip punches through the damaged joint of his terminator plate, penetrating the corrupted flesh beneath, driving deep into his torso. His strike goes wide as pain disrupts his aim, the maul's energy field crackling harmlessly to my right. I maintain my grip on the standard, using my momentum and weight to drive it deeper, to ensure the wound is mortal, even for a being as enhanced as a space marine. Corvus drops his maul, his gauntleted hands coming up to grasp the haft of the standard protruding from his chest. Blood, darker than it should be and smelling of copper and ozone, wells around the wound, dripping onto the floor between us. "Well struck," he gasps, his voice wet with blood, his human eye meeting mine with something like respect. A fitting end, perhaps, slain by the symbol of what I once served. I maintain my grip on the standard, unwilling to release it until I am certain he cannot recover. It is never too late to seek the Emperor's forgiveness, brother. Even now, redemption is possible. Corvus laughs, the sound bubbling with blood. Redemption? For 10 millennia of war against the Imperium, your Emperor does not forgive, Helios. He punishes, he consumes, just as my gods do. His corrupted eye seems to pulse with unnatural energy, the writhing tissue focusing on me with malign intent. But perhaps there is another form of redemption, a final gift from brother to brother. Before I can react, his hand shoots out, ceramite gauntlet closing around my throat with crushing force. I feel the armor protecting my neck begin to buckle under the pressure, feel the first warnings of oxygen deprivation despite my enhanced physiology. "See what I have seen," Corvus whispers, his voice no longer entirely his own, harmonics of something older and hungrier vibrating beneath the words. "Know what I have known." The corrupted eye expands, reality seeming to warp around it as the tissue writhes and pulses. I try to look away, to close my eyes against whatever malign influence he seeks to exert, but my body refuses to obey. Instead, I find myself staring into that impossible orb, falling into depths that should not exist in real space. Visions assault my mind, fragments of memory and nightmare intertwined. I see the siege of terror through Corvus's eyes, the desperation and hatred of the Iron Warriors as they flung themselves against the walls their brothers defended. I feel the bitterness of Perturabo, the Primarch's rage at perceived slights transformed into a poison that infected his entire legion. Deeper still, I glimpse the entities that wait beyond the veil of reality, vast and hungry intelligences that feed on emotion and belief. Gods or merely predators of the warp, their nature is beyond mortal comprehension, their influence a corruption that spreads through weakness and desire. This is the truth. Corvus's voice reaches me through the maelstrom of visions. The gods are real, Helios, more real than your Emperor, who sits silent on his throne while the Imperium crumbles around him. With the last of my strength, I twist the standard, widening the wound in his chest. Corvus gasps, his grip on my throat loosening momentarily as pain disrupts his concentration. I tear myself free, staggering back from his corrupting influence, from the visions he sought to burn into my mind. "The Emperor protects," I whisper, the catechism a shield against the lingering touch of whatever he tried to show me. His light stands against the darkness. Corvus sinks to his knees, Terminator armor too heavy to support now that his strength fails. The standard remains lodged in his chest, the golden aquila at its peak spattered with his corrupted blood. "His light," Corvus coughs, more blood spilling from his lips. "What light, brother? I see only shadow. Only war without end or purpose." "Purpose enough," I respond, moving to stand over him, to witness his final moments as both duty and brotherhood demand. "To stand against what you have become. To protect humanity from the darkness that claimed you." He looks up at me, his human eye clearing briefly. A glimpse of the warrior he once was visible beneath the corruption. "We could have been more, Helios, more than weapons, more than slaves to gods who care nothing for us." "Perhaps," I acknowledge, the admission torn from some deep place within me. "But this is the path chosen for us. by the Emperor, by your dark gods, by ourselves in the choices we have made." Corvus nods, a gesture somehow dignified despite the ruin of his body. "The long war continues, brother, with or without me. Remember that when you claim your hollow victory." His eye dulls, the corruption that sustained him fading as death claims what remains of his soul. The mutated orb collapses in on itself, leaving an empty socket that stares blindly at nothing. In death, his features seem to smooth, some of the corruption receding to reveal more of the battle brother I once knew. I stand over his body for a long moment, conflicting emotions warring within me: relief at victory, grief for the brother lost millennia ago, uncertainty about the visions he forced upon me. Was there truth in what he showed me, or merely the lies of chaos designed to weaken faith and resolve? The central keep continues to shudder around us as the battle for Varden enters its final stages. Through my vox, I hear reports of iron warriors falling back to their final defensive positions, of Imperial fists pushing forward with righteous zeal. "Captain," a voice reaches me, Sergeant Octavian of Squad Invictus approaching cautiously. "The enemy leader?" "Fallen," I confirm, my voice steadier than I feel. "Signal all units, press the attack. The traitors are broken without their master." Octavian salutes, turning to relay my orders while his squad secures the chamber. I kneel beside Corvus's body, not in respect for what he became, but in acknowledgement of what he once was. With careful movements, I retrieve the company standard, wiping the corrupted blood from its length with a scrap of cloth. The golden aquila gleams in the uncertain light, a symbol of everything I have fought for across 10 millennia of service. Yet Corvus's final words echo in my mind, a hollow victory in an endless war. Is that truly all we have won here? Another fortress reclaimed, another enemy defeated, only for the long war to continue elsewhere? I push the thought aside, focusing on the immediate. Brother Tavian lies where he fell, his gene seed already harvested by an apothecary who moves efficiently among the fallen. The ancient died as he lived, in service to the Emperor and the chapter. There is no higher calling for a son of dawn. Rising to my feet, I plant the standard in the center of the chamber, claiming Vardoon once more for the Imperium. The battle will continue for hours or days yet, as the remaining iron warriors are hunted down and destroyed, but the outcome is no longer in doubt. Victory belongs to the Imperial fists, to the Imperium, to the Emperor. Yet as I stand beneath the standard, its fabric moving slightly in currents of air from the shattered ceiling above, I cannot shake the feeling that Corvus and I were more alike than different. Both shaped by the same forge of war, both devoted to ideals larger than ourselves, both willing to kill and die for those ideals. What truly separates the loyal from the damned? Is it merely the gods we choose to serve, the banners we choose to follow, or is there something more fundamental, some core of humanity preserved in those who stand in the Emperor's light? I have no answers, only questions that must remain unvoiced. Doubt is the first step on the road to heresy, as the chaplains teach. Faith must be maintained, especially in the face of uncertainty. "The Emperor protects," I whisper, the catechism both affirmation and prayer. Around me, the Sons of Dawn continue their advance through the fallen fortress, bolters barking as they deliver the Emperor's justice to those who turned from his light. I retrieve my bolt pistol, checking its mechanism before holstering it once more. My power sword lies shattered where it fell, useless now except as a relic to be returned to the chapter's armory. No matter. There will be other weapons, other battles, other enemies to face in the Emperor's name. The long war continues, as Corvus said. With or without us, it grinds on across the stars, claiming souls and worlds in its wake. All I can do, all any of us can do, is stand against the darkness where we find it, hold to our oaths despite doubt and pain, and trust that our faith serves some purpose beyond our comprehension. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. And we are its instruments, loyalist and traitor alike, bound to our paths by choices made millennia ago, by gods who may care nothing for those who die in their names. As I moved to join my brothers in the final push against the Iron Warriors, I cast one last glance at Corvus's body. In death, he seemed smaller somehow, the corruption that augmented him fading to reveal the mortal beneath the monster. "Goodbye, brother," I say softly, words meant for no ears but my own. "May you find in death the peace that eluded you in life." Then I turn away, toward the sound of bolter fire and the duty that awaits. The fortress moon of Vardoon will be cleansed, the Imperial fists will return to their eternal vigil, and I will continue to serve, to fight, to believe, because faith is all that separates us from the darkness. Faith, and the willingness to die for it. The Emperor protects. Or so we must believe, in this universe of endless war and fleeting victory.